shower, on a walk, the Dylan Hour. Feeling sweet, feeling sour.
I feel nothing.
The Dylan Hour. My couch is open, it's better than therapy. All you soccer moms, all your theys and thems, all your bottom boys, my bisexual femmes. Come one and all, disassociate with me. It's free. Grab a drink, or two, or three. You have no friends, all good, you got me. It's the Dylan Hour. Love ya.
Isn't that the fine programming that you were just waiting for? I never knew there were so many different kind of categories within the subcategories of those who categorize themselves as women with wieners. But evidently, I had to play this, but evidently, right? Evidently, I had to play this because evidently this is the type of programming, right? This is the type of programming that the system loves. By the way, somebody said, I don't think you're live on Facebook. I should be. I'm trying to see where it's broadcasting. I'll share you a link. I should be. I see it, but Facebook kind of blocks a lot of my stuff. But there you go. You should be able to see it on Facebook. But imagine some executive green lighting this, thinking this is a great talk show.
In the shower, on a walk, the Dylan Hour. Feeling sweet, feeling sour.
I feel nothing.
The Dylan Hour. My couch is open, it's better than therapy. All your soccer moms, all your theys and thems, all your bottom boys, my bisexual femmes. Come one and all, disassociate with me. It's free. Grab a drink, or two, or three. You have no friends, all good, you got me. It's the Dylan Hour. Love ya.
When I think of this, and it's relevant to today's discussion that we're going to have, I think about how far we've fallen. Now, I don't care, and most people don't care. If that little boy wants to play like he's a woman, that's his thing. If that little boy prays to the one-eyed, purple-headed God, that's his choice. That's free will. But it also makes me think about how far we've fallen. And that's part of the topic today that we're going to look at is how far have we fallen? By the way, speaking of fallen, right? It seems that my stomach has fallen over my belt. Come on, guys, you know what I'm talking about. It's Dunlopped over time. One of the things I do to combat it is I use Field of Greens. Now, I want to let you know, today's the last day. This is it. Field of Greens is now wrapping up their huge St. Patty's Day sale. You're going to get 30% off when you use the promo code LUCK, L-U-C-K. Look, you don't always eat as healthy as we should, but Field of Greens has your back. One delicious glass is packed with a rainbow of Dr. and Rainbow. Not that kind of rainbow. It's all the colors of the doctor selected fruits and veggies that are there to support heart and kidney health and metabolism and more. So when you go for the burger instead of the salad, you're still giving your body the good stuff it needs. And during their St. Patty's Day sale, it's going to end today. You can save some green while you drink your greens. Save 30% on all their popular flavors and bundles when you use promo code LUCK. Whether it's Field of Greens is already part of your routine, or you've been waiting to give it a try, now's your chance. You're going to save big. Today's the last day. go out and get Field of Greens. You can go to fieldofgreens.com. You can scan the code on the screen, use the promo code. The link's down below. That's fieldofgreens.com. Fieldofgreens.com. And to get this, your promo code is luck. Speaking of luck, don't test your luck when it comes to your money. Really don't. Do not test your luck when it comes to your money. I'm telling you. Do not at all tempt your own money. And yes, you probably participate in a 401k, IRA, right? Retirement savings account. They take your money, they invest it. You don't get the real benefit of it, right? You don't get the real benefit of it. And they use it against us. I'm just asking you to go to JovanLovesGold.com and get your free gold and silver kit. And if you would have listened when I told you, way back when, well, what you would have put in would have been double by now. And it's not that it's an investment. That's just the nature of what happens with gold. It can go up, it can go down or otherwise, but that's where you would have been. But the system tries to keep you away from it. Now, I want to let you know, our whole world is at war. And I'm going to give you a statement of total ignorance, and I'm going to show you how it works. People just believe people online because they've seen something instead of digging, and says, Israel is the one that started every world war. They're behind everything. They did everything. But if you actually opened your mind and looked, you would be able to go back about 4 years, and part of this battle of them keeping Trump out of the White House, and people just don't connect the dots. You know, Trump did the most important thing in the Middle East ever, right? Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and helped negotiate in the Middle East, something that could never be done before because the system wanted wars. They got it done. Well, they got his ass out of the White House. Now, isn't it funny that at the time of the pandemic, at the time of them taking the elections, was the same time when you started watching an incredible, right, battle trying to convince you Jews were the source of everything bad. Now, people don't put that together, but I talked about it. I talked about it with my friend Roseanne. I talked about it with Mel K, fellow Jews. And way back when, for several years, we kept on saying, something's coming, something's coming, something's up. Well, see, over in China and other countries, they have buildings with hundreds of thousands of digital soldiers in it, and they spread this stuff. And when you hear it enough, you believe it's true. It's the old adage, repeat a lie enough, people will take it as true. Well, they did that. Well, if you could intellectually embrace that, you would understand they did all of that rhetoric leading up to October 7th. And then when October 7th happened, they got the world to say, well, Palestinians killed all these people, but that's not really it. It's Israel. And I'm surprised how many people cannot see that. Right? I'm surprised how many people cannot connect the dots. But I'm also surprised how many people cannot believe the word of God that told you forever he'll protect the people of Israel. But you got to understand, everything's a fight to get rid of God, to get rid of faith, to get rid of families, to get rid of men are men and women are women. It's all under attack. It is all under attack. Don't think that the rat bastards only fight one thing. They just don't want you to know what the real deal is. Because if you know the real deal, you're dangerous. Right? And to say Israel allowed October 7th to happen is about as ignorant as to say back on September 11th, where my whole life changed, losing people, losing $800 million in one day. You, the American people, planned it. It's just ignorance. Now, ignorance is not like calling somebody stupid. It just means you're ignorant to the facts. But see, people need bad guys. Right? If you have a bad guy to focus on, you can hate on the bad guys as much as you want, never look at the system. Because why? The system doesn't want you to look at them. And just like, and it's staring you right in the face, just like you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that January 6th here in the United States was a freaking job. You know it. You saw it. Police involved in everything. If you watched my program the other day, well, don't you understand the same thing happened in Israel with bad guys placed in high places? That's why the world is under attack. And that's why the people that hate God and the way you love God are rising. And the ones that have great faith, right, want great families and stuff, are being told you're the bad guys. It's all part of the war. And that's part of what I'm going to cover in my program today, the war. But we're going to go way back in time. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to pose something to you. And by the way, I just want to point out one thing. Today's topic, we're going to talk about Egypt. And although it has close proximity to Israel, what I would like is to focus on opening your mind, putting away everything you think you know, and focus on this one thing, because I want you to see where you come out in it. I want you to decide, wow, what do you think? So I'd love for you to focus, because there is a good chance that everything we knew was wrong. And I want to ask you the question, what if? And if there's a what if, would it shake your faith? That's what I want you to think about. So I want you to share this program right now. It's going to be a very interesting ride. I want to let you know also, this is part of the big global cabal of misinformation. You know, right now, the WEF, you know who are contributing more to the death of the environment, according to them? Well, forget cow farts. One click down is you. Yeah, you, if you have your own garden. Did you know that? That's the new program. I told you it was coming years ago. Anyway, think about it. Maybe grow a garden and protest. Say, fuck you, WEF and UN. Anyway, share this. We're going to have a fun, interesting program today.
This crazy world is telling you your sons can be daughters and your daughters can be your sons. When will the madness stop? Never. So you have to decide, will you comply or defy? They tell us all, you will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. Is this why America's largest food processing plants and food supply plants keep burning down? Do you really think this is a coincidence? Of course not. The system is telling us right to our faces what they have planned for us. You have a choice. Comply or simply defy their plan for us all. Defy the system's plan and execute your own plan. Abundant, safe, secure natural food supply. Introducing the Food Forest Bible. This bestseller by JovanHuttonPulitzer is the single most complete, executable, easy-to-follow plan for sustainable, self-managing food production for self-sufficiency and food security. For the first time ever, a coffee table, heirloom quality full color book which unlocks the ancient secrets of creating a food forest. Imagine planting in a way which requires no digging, no pesticides, and creates massive ancient food abundance. No fooling. Food forests are the ancient secret to planning and planting once. And have your own Garden of Eden, which will feed your families for decade after decade. Buck the system. Buck the New World Order and order your very own copy of Jovan HuttonPulitzer's Food Forest Bible.
Warning. The following program has been rated Dilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians, the elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd? Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan HuttonPulitzer, he's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics, they all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan HuttonPulitzer.
Hey, folks, welcome to the crap. Crap is merely culture, race, and American politics. You know what? You might not know this, but if you're actually following the program on Rumble, rumble.com/JovanHuttonPulitzer, click the following, by the way, if you haven't. There's always almost like a secondary show going on all the time. Sometimes it gets out of control, and today, I'm glad at least one person got my reference. I wrote, class, shut up. You know, it's an old Sister Mary Elephant joke. Do you remember Sister Mary Elephant? Yes, that was a long time ago. It was a Cheech and Chong comedy album. Think about it. The way comics made the big bucks way back then was comedy albums. It's amazing how far we've come as a civilization. I was watching, I don't know what it was. I think I was watching a movie just to kind of distract myself, right? Young man. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you know the old album. I was watching a movie called Raise the Titanic. They were going after some very mineral that had been put on the Titanic. And it was just amazing what they were doing in the movie, which was all kind of smoke and mirrors then, but we actually do today. That was a movie in 1980, Ann Archer, etc. But it's amazing that we can actually do what that movie depicted then. Now, you may have seen a story, right? You may have seen a story. And the story is about a new discovery regarding the pyramids of Giza. About something that goes down into the earth, just an unimaginable amount. Of course, instantly when this story came out, one side goes utter fabrication, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you were to look at this thing, here's kind of a ratio. The pyramids are something interesting. Now, what you're going to find out, and we're going to find out in this program, we're going to watch it. It's amazing that what they found kind of mimics what Nikola Tesla talked about a long time ago. And you know, Nikola Tesla was basically run out of town because he wanted to give away free energy, and he figured out how to do it. Here's Tesla's actual drawing. Here's what they found under the pyramids. Here's Tesla's actual drawing. Here's what they're saying under the pyramids. And so we're going to cover that today. But I want to give you kind of a thought, because it's going to be one program, but there's two parts to this. I'm going to show you two things. Okay? Number one, I believe, and this is my own belief, you can see if you can adopt it when you see things, is that everything we knew or everything we thought was true was wrong. Right? But the second part of it is, what if? What if we learn things? And I'm approaching it from the standpoint of, would it shake your faith? That's all I want you to think about. Would it shake your faith? Now, actually, I guess it was yesterday, I was with my very good friend, Tom Renz, on his program. You should pop over and watch that one. We were talking about different things, and the pyramids came up. And the pyramids are fascinating. And of course, just so you understand a part of me is, 9/11, I brought it up earlier, 9/11, vapor-wise, $800 million of my wealth vaporized in one moment. And that was 9/11 when I'm trying to save my company and everything else. There was just no way to do it. The bankers were killed in Tower 2. There was nothing that could be done. What I did was I shut down emotionally in many, many, many different ways. I was raising my newborn son, myself, and I decided to go back to seminary and start writing books, or go to seminary and start writing books. During that time, I started literally going into exploration and ended up doing exploration all around the world. And the only thing that brought me out of a life of exploration was I started doing some medical breakthroughs, which kind of thrust me into two new companies in the medical field. And then this election stuff happened. And I decided to take my research and I could turn it to the elections and look at the paper. Otherwise, you would find me eating beans and rice, wiping my ass with cactus off in a desert for months at a time, or South America, or the Yucatan, or Antarctic, or whatever the case may be, which just feeds my soul. In fact, right now, my soul's nagging me to get back out into the field. And so many of these things I've seen, and I always look at them from a different perspective. And I'm always interested in why the system intentionally draws us away from truth. And I'm going to, on my screen here, I want to show you something. This is the pyramid, but I want to show you a little bit that the system never shows you. So you're looking at, let me just kind of pop that up. This is if you were looking at the side of the pyramid. Do you see this little bitty door? This is where people line up to go in. So you have a scale of how big the pyramid is. And this doesn't even show the bottom. But what history doesn't show you is this is the actual doorway right here. This is the doorway. Yes. And when you see it in relation to people, it is. Now, when you look at the blocks, you find out a very interesting thing is the doorway was blocked off. It happened to never be there, meaning it happened never to be a covered front. It was this magnificent doorway. And most people never know that. And so if you've gone to the pyramid, a great friend of mine went in, and by the way, what is supposedly a little Khufu's stone sarcophagus, he bribed the guard let him lay in it and got some pictures. But anyway, this is where people go in, which is really just kind of a side corridor. Okay. And so I'm going to put some of these pieces together for you today based on this really interesting new story that has come out. And all I want you to do is to kind of suspend belief for a moment. That's it. I just want you to suspend belief for a moment. And let's see where we end up on this. So I want to show you when typically when people think the pyramids and they think the entryways, right? What you're seeing is actually not the passages of the pyramid. Here's what you normally see. Harvard just put this out. So you can go through the walkway. So this is kind of where the people go in that I just showed you, right? You know, this little passageway down here. So they're going to take you through this passageway, okay? And I want to show you it stitched together photographically. Now, I want you to notice something. I'm going to give you a hint here so you watch. The stoneways were cut in to find other stoneways, and you're looking at alignment devices. But then when you see they finally come into the main corridors, pay attention in the background, you'll see the ceiling shoot way up, shoots up over 60 feet. That's the real corridor. These are different things that most people think are the entrances. Now, I won't interrupt now and watch. So these are the small corridors. This is just going up to what they know as air vents now. Now watch when you get into tomb area. Other air vent, and you're going to watch it shoot up. Boom, there it was. See it? There it is. That's the real height. Over 60 feet. Now, most people don't know it's attributed to Khufu, which goes back to the days of Howard Carter doing searches in Egypt way back when. And Khufu was actually literally it's just a graffiti inscription. That's it. It's graffiti. But it has created a mythology that this was Khufu's pyramid and Khufu's temple. Now, I want to show you one other thing. If you were to ask artificial intelligence, I'm not talking Maxine Waters. That's a different type of artificial intelligence, or AOC, right? If you were to ask artificial intelligence, using what's published or out there, how would you depict the Great Pyramids to have been built? Here's what artificial intelligence will serve you back. Yes, if you paid attention, the giant set blocks on people, but that's artificial intelligence. It couldn't move out of the way. Okay. That's if you ask something that can read everything out there that was ever published, what would it look like? And I will remind you, that's really interesting when you think about the fact that when you go to the pyramid, where the people go in, that I showed you the video that you associate with the door is actually not the door, it's way up here. And that door is massive. That's the real door that got covered up with new rock. Nobody knows really when, but it was refaced to hide it. Okay. So, with that said, I'm going to show you this story that's coming out. This is going to be 2 parts in it. I'm going to show you this story coming out. I want you to completely wipe your mind. I only have 2 questions for you. Okay? Because, see, you're already learning. You had no idea those massive entryways were there. Okay? So I know from a historical standpoint, everything we think we know is absolutely wrong. You can watch my program that I did with my buddy Tom Renz. I talk a little bit more about the things we've been taught that are absolutely wrong. And so for me, that's a fact. I want you to see where you end up on this, but I want you to just do the what if. If you found everything you thought you knew was not true or not based on truth, would it shake your faith? Now, here's why I ask, would it shake your faith? I'm going to give you one thing as an anchor, and then we're going to go on into the context. The context is when you look at the Bible, and it basically says, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born unto them, the sons of God, small g, saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, and their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward. And when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans, they had children by them. And those were the heroes of old, or the men of renown, or great, we should say specimens. Okay? So I'm going to plant that anchor, because you have to try to justify, how can we talk Adam and Eve, but the Bible talks about the men of old, the giants of old, etc. With that, there's been a brand new discovery using technology and the pyramids.
I'm struggling to express in words just how significant of a discovery this is. What has just been announced in relation to the pyramids at the Giza Plateau and the plateau itself is so incredible, so awe-inspiring and narrative-shattering that I have been sitting here for the last hour trying to wrap my head around the implications of what we were just told. So this is pretty much breaking news, because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who was studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology that was first developed by Filippo Bionde and Corrado Malanga, called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. So this was used to explore the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this method leverages the analysis of micro movements typically generated by background seismic activity to achieve a high resolution full 3D tomographic imagery of the pyramid's interior and subsurface components. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground.
Okay. So evidently these structures, which again look a lot like what Tesla said, that they get plasma energy out of the earth, right? 3 football fields down. Okay? 3 football fields down. Okay, so you know that. I mean, that's a long way. Under the 3 football field down is other devices and or structures that go 1.37 miles down. So I just want to give you scale, because the scale, and here you're only seeing your top level, the scale of this thing is astronomical.
2 kilometers, massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. Utilizing high-resolution radar images from Capella Space and Umbra, which are 2 private companies that specialize in satellite-based synthetic aperture radar imaging. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid. But the most shocking discovery lies beneath the surface. Below ground level, radar tomography has identified vertical cylindrical structures extending for hundreds of meters beneath the pyramid. There are 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 parallel rows, descending to an astonishing depth of 648 meters.
Okay. Now, first off, I want to kind of set a tone. This is not a discussion about religion. That's man-made. This is not a discussion about faith. That's God-made and your choice. You have free will. So as we go through this, don't lay religion on it. Don't start debating, well, I'm Southern Baptist and I'm Pentecostal and you're that is not what this is about. We right now are only having a technology, geology discussion. That's it. Now, I fully expect if you go through the pyramid and you go down through all of these devices, right? And you go down that 643 feet, and then you go down the other 1.37 miles. I think there is a chamber, and inside that chamber is going to be the PCAPs. But that's just my thought. This is not religion. I want you to immediately deny yourself taking this to religion, because I'm going to tell you where I sit. If I found out that I was worm dirt, turtle sperm, and a mushroom, and that's what I came from, it would not change any of my faith in God, because how did the worm dirt, turtle sperm, and mushroom get there to begin with? Not at all. There's also very interesting stuff, because recently, in a discovery in the middle of the ocean, well, I wouldn't say the middle of the ocean, on the shoreline of an ocean. Wait, Mike does Giza sheets. Now it all makes sense. Giza sheets, PCAP, Giza sheet. Anyway, somebody in chat gave me that. I just used it. They recently found a statue submerged, brought it up, but they were able to, very interestingly, lift fingerprints off of it. Now, I've been to ancient sites that are 1,000+ years old, investigating ochre walls and stuff like that, and you can still see the handprints and the fingerprints of the people that made it. We don't know where all this is going to lead up, but I just want you to say, or do for a minute, just suspend the religion part of this. And let's just have our minds open, because it's only 2 questions. Do you believe everything we knew was wrong? And what if you found out something different? Would it change your faith? Let's go back.
Even more intriguing, at the base of these structures are two massive cubic formations measuring approximately 80 meters in diameter. The tomographic data suggests that these are vertical wells with intricate spiral pathways. Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water. I mean, the pyramid itself was already a massive...
Now, the dynastic Egyptian model means the pharaohs built the pyramids. When you watch my program I did with Tom Renz, you'll go find Tom Renz on Rumble. Watch that, what I did yesterday. You understand that the documents in Egypt, the Egyptians, it's now turned into tourism. So, of course, it's Khufu and it's going to, we built them. But the reality is the Egyptians excavated the pyramids. It's in their own history. It's in their own documents. But when it became the source of the economy for Egypt, they changed it. Imagine that. And they forbid it. But they excavated them. Even in Napoleon's time, when they went there, the Sphinx was still buried. And you should understand things about the Sphinx, etc. They literally have massive water erosion on them. Like the Great Flood. That's why I'm telling you, just kind of suspend everything, right? Kind of suspend everything. But in true Egyptian history, they were kind of found one day and they started digging them out, and here were these big things underneath.
Red flag in the ancient Egyptian historical narrative. But now, with this discovery, I think it's become impossible to say that the Egyptian civilizations that we understand, that we've been taught about, were responsible for building these structures. And it doesn't even end there. The radar analysis extends beneath the entire Giza plateau, revealing interconnected structures beneath not only the Great Pyramid of Giza, but also those of Khufu and Menkaure. The subsurface network reaches down to a staggering depth of approximately 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. This is not possible, given the standard historical and archaeological narrative given to us about ancient Egypt. Now, I'm hearing that there is more to come. There is a 4-hour presentation that's going to be released by the research team. This is what I'm hearing. That's going to go into every detail of their findings. This has essentially been a strategic release of incredible data ahead of time to get people interested. And I am more interested in this than basically anything else right now, because this is by far the most provocative piece of evidence for not only a potential technological explanation for the purpose of the Giza complex, but it also provides the most extraordinary evidence for a pre-flood era civilization that was flourishing in a way that we can scarcely comprehend. It's also possible that this spiraling cylindrical series of structures are staircases, and I can't help but think of the channeled writings of Thoth the Atlantean, you know, the emerald tablets, speaking of a lost hall of records, a sacred hall of knowledge below the Giza plateau, the halls of Amenti. Could this be the lost hall of records from the pre-flood era? Now, obviously, this discovery is extremely controversial. It runs as a complete contradiction of the established narratives and status quo in mainstream academia on these issues. This will cause big waves throughout the academic and the wider world if they can fully evidence these findings. But the results so far seem pretty clear. There is obviously significant structural engineering taking place deep below the pyramids and the Giza plateau in general. Has this changed your mind on the pyramids? Has this strengthened your position on what they might have been? Has this new discovery given you any new ideas about what the implications are? Let me know in the comment section below, and honestly, everyone, share this far and wide. This is such interesting stuff. Don't forget to...
So this is like becoming a big story, right? Now, I told you The minute this hit, already the stories came out that this was fake, because the person doing the original story has an association with Alex Jones. So that's what the system's attacking first. Wait, he did reports for Alex Jones? Well, that means this is fake. So this is already coming out, which I kind of think it means we should maybe take a look at it. All right, we should just kind of take a look at it. Now, I showed you earlier the true doorways of the pyramid. Now, I've always known this. I've always followed. My interest in this is one of the reasons they ran Tesla out of town. Edison stole most of Tesla's work, right? Is because, and one of the biggest confrontations that they had with Tesla, who died crazy and penniless. It's a horribly sad story. But it amazes me, Tesla's drawings, right? And how this thing may be constructed. And of course, Tesla at the time, and he demonstrated it, folks, he demonstrated it, that he could power lights and everything that were coming, and it was absolutely free from the earth. Now, I want you to understand just for a moment in context of mankind and control, just for a moment. Tesla built this thing. Tesla built his tower. It generated electricity that would run things, but would not kill you. You see many pictures of him sitting there, and this electrical arcs are popping everywhere. So he showed he could light up a town, and it just came right from the earth. And you just build these towers. On the other side of the spectrum, this is the AC/DC current issue. The electricity on the other side, Edison and others were trying to do and produce, was different, and it would kill you. It would knock you dead, as is electricity today, will knock you dead. And the way Edison demonstrated it is they walked a elephant into the live wire, and it fried and killed the elephant, which became national news. So it taught people to fear, not to investigate. Sound familiar? Fear it, don't investigate it. Tesla was on the other side. Now, this became the great challenge with Tesla, right? Because he says, wait a minute, this just comes from the earth. And the system said, hold your freaking horses. We're going to own it and control it. We'll make people pay for it. Okay, put a pin in that for a moment before we go to the next story. The same thing happened, right? The same thing happened with a fellow by the name of Rudy Diesel. And if you followed my program for a long time, I've talked about Rudy Diesel. Now, at that time, as we're moving into the quasi combination of industrial age and agrarian society, Rudy Diesel, a fellow German, basically came up with this idea. Now listen and pay attention. He came up with what was called the diesel engine. That's why they're called diesels. What Rudy Diesel did was similar to what Tesla did. Tesla said, this shit comes from the earth, control your life. Mankind said, screw that. And they basically ran Tesla out of town and destroyed him. Rudy Diesel, on the other hand, as we're starting to grow more and build more, creating the diesel engine, he designed the diesel engine to run on grain. Yeah. He said, okay, this is going to make huge implications in farming, and grow soybeans, grow corn, or whatever the case may be. Press the oil out of it, corn oil, soybean oil, press the corn out of it, and that oil will power this engine. Now, what Rudy Diesel said is, we've got to make our farmers wildly successful. And if farming is going to feed the world and survive, farmers can grow their own fuel. Rudy Diesel came to America. Now, if you've ever seen Men in Black, and you've ever seen those big saucers on a tower or whatever, well, they had the World's Fair. And Rudy Diesel showed off his engine and stuff, and it became all the rage. This is going to change the world. All of the rich families got together with Rudy Diesel and said, wait a minute. And they tried to convince him, don't let farmers grow their own fuel. You're looking at it wrong. This is not about like Tesla selling towers. This is about selling energy. They said, this is not about selling diesel engines. This is about sell the fuel. And then they have to buy from you all the time. And so at that time, they were dealing with an issue that had been discovered in, I think it's called Drake's Folly, right? There used to be oil on the ground in Pennsylvania. Native tribes used it, rubbed stuff in it and could burn it. And that's how we discovered oil. But Drake said, well, that's got to be in the earth. We'll drill for it. And they said, you're fucking stupid. That won't work. Craziest invention ever. Well, he's the one that invented we drill for oil, and it changed the world. Well, these guys were now getting addicted to oil, which is why I tell people, if you know history, then you understand we already saved the whales. Yeah, I always laugh about this. Protesters out there ramming boats and whatever, save the whales. Well, what they don't realize is back then, our oil, which ran our lamps and everything else, industry and the whole thing, was fucking whale oil. Yes, whale oil. And whales were being slaughtered. Then they discovered petroleum. And basically, we don't need whale oil anymore. And they stopped killing the whales. And the whale population came roaring back. But of course, they don't teach that because everything's political. Anyway, they tried to convince Rudy Diesel, hey, you got to see this stuff, petroleum. You could make your engine work on petroleum. Then it won't be about the engine. They'll have to keep on buying from us all the time. So they tried to bribe Rudy Diesel. And Rudy Diesel said, no, not at all. I'm not going to do it. So they decided, okay, we'll just ride back across the ocean with Rudy. He's headed back to Europe. We'll ride back across the ocean and let's see if we can talk some sense into him. And so for days and days, because it's a long voyage across the ocean, they tried to negotiate with him. If you know about that trip, you know that Rudy Diesel fell overboard and was never heard from again. And we never got diesel. We got combustion engines, and petroleum took off. Now, yesterday, diesel was about $4.60 a gallon. Diesel is the cheapest fuel we make by far. The cheapest. It doesn't even have to be refined. It's more like skimming it off the top. It costs pennies to make per gallon. So it'll run in the engine. That difference between those pennies and that $4.60 you're paying a gallon for diesel is all tax, all humans, all bullshit. It's not needed. Now, I tell you this because we have all been subject to this slavery, which is now in modern times why they're even trying to outlaw gardens. But I've told you this for a long time. Now, I set you up with that so you'd know history of man. Mankind inherently can do bad things. Everybody can do bad things. But it's free will and it's choice. And that's the battle all of us face in the world of being mankind, for which we pay for it with the penalty of death. Now, suspend that, holy shit, there might be something under the pyramids that could change everything, right? But you realize they're only doing this now because satellites caught up, because technology caught up, because in Egypt, you're not allowed to investigate these things. They won't let you do it. It's all buttoned down. And this is a classic battle mankind has been through. So I'm going to go back to this statement, and we're just going to tie a few things of these together, because if I showed you these incredible entrances, right, in the pyramids, which most people they just don't know about, right? They do not know about these entrances, have never seen them, did not know it was there. But this is part of what's been hidden. Again, I'm going to show you one more time. There's where you enter on the bottom. That's even up. They found a break in the wall, and that's where you go in. You climb up many of these big blocks. You can see it over on the right. I'll pump it up for you. Right? People, and the scale of these things, you can see how big the stones are, okay? They're still climbing. You climb your way up. It's pretty laborious to get to this one little crack in the wall you can get in. But what they've always hidden, because they put new stones around it, is the true entranceway. Okay? Now, in light of that, I want to just take you to the part of the story, right? Just take you to the part of the stories of, does this connect to B'nai Elohim? Does it connect to the Menashim, etc.? How could all this connect? And what could we possibly learn out of this? So, and again, some people make hay with this and turn it into hate, because hate is their stock in trade. But you have to contact, it's the Jews, it's the Hebrews. You're going to have to reconcile that long ago, the seat of the world wasn't America, wasn't the United States, wasn't DC, wasn't New York. The fucking city of the world was Israel. And that's the only context. But some people want to make hay and hate out of it. Let's dive into the subject.
In the deep recesses of ancient...
Let's dive into the subject of what are these men of old and the Nephilim.
In the deep recesses of ancient times, before the great flood washed away the sins of a fallen world, there existed beings of extraordinary power and stature, beings known as the...
Now I'm going to give you a context. Pay attention. I already told you the pyramids were buried. The Sphinx was buried. The Sphinx itself, which is lower than the pyramids, has tremendous water damage. Not water that flows down it, water that somehow scraped all the way along the side of it like a big rushing flood. Pay attention.
In the deep recesses of ancient times, before the great flood washed away the sins of a fallen world, there existed beings of extraordinary power and stature, beings known as the Nephilim. These giants, whose origins are shrouded in mystery, have captivated the imaginations of countless generations. Their story is one of divine beings, human women, and the catastrophic consequences of their union. This is the untold story of the Nephilim, a tale that begins in the heavenly realms and descends to the very depths of earthly corruption.
Okay. Even the Bible tells you about the story of the angels coming and going. You have to decide what you believe, right? But if the Bible is being codified, it's codified. Talks about giants of old, talks about the men of old, talks about good angels, bad angels, etc. And by the way, that theme, combined with great power sources that could power things, light up things, move things, and fly things, is also codified in something equally as old as the Mahabharata, which is India. But let's keep on going. Just listen to the words.
The story of the Nephilim begins in the celestial courts of heaven, where the sons of God held their divine appointments. These beings, often identified as angels, were tasked with watching over and guiding the affairs of humanity. Among them were a group known as the Watchers, entrusted with the responsibility of observing the human world and ensuring its order and harmony. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text, provides a detailed account of these Watchers. According to Enoch, 200 of these celestial beings, led by a powerful angel named Semyaza, descended to earth. Their initial intent was to monitor humanity, but their mission soon took a fateful turn. As they observed the daughters of men, they were struck by their beauty and grace. The Watchers, who had previously remained aloof from human affairs, found themselves captivated and longing for human companionship. Semyaza, their leader, voiced his desire to take human wives and father children, but he...
No. This is not where the story goes. If you once finally go black, you'll never go back. Stop it.
He feared the repercussions of such a transgression. Despite his reservations, Semyaza's words resonated with the other Watchers, and they vowed to follow him, binding themselves by an oath to share in the consequences of their actions. This decision marked the beginning of an unprecedented event in human history, the union of divine beings with mortal women. The descent of the Watchers and their union with human women is briefly mentioned in Genesis 6. 1, 2. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose.
Now, I will remind you, in the Bible, first half ancient Jewish works, second half more modern works, create Old and New Testament. However, only 66 books out of thousands were used. One of the apocrypha books, meaning hidden from sight, was the Book of Enoch and others. And Enoch goes back older, and it tells these stories. But when they codified the Bible, they didn't want to talk about big beings, big things, or whatever. So they kind of forbid it. But you can actually find those on your own out there if you want to dig deeper.
This passage, though brief, signifies a profound and forbidden mingling of the heavenly and the earthly. The Watchers, now bound to their oath, took human wives and fathered a race of hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. These offspring, inheriting the divine attributes of their fathers and the human traits of their mothers, grew to be giants, both in physical stature and in their influence on the world. The Nephilim were described as heroes of old, men of renown, Genesis 6:4. They possessed extraordinary strength, intelligence, and abilities that set them apart from ordinary humans. As they grew, so did their impact on the world. They became leaders, warriors and rulers, often revered and feared by the people around them. However, the presence of the Nephilim also brought about significant and catastrophic changes. Their immense power and influence led to widespread corruption and moral decay. The Watchers, who were meant to guide humanity, now found themselves contributing to its downfall. The Nephilim, using their superior abilities, dominated and oppressed those around them, leading to an era of violence and chaos. The actions of the Watchers and the rise of the Nephilim did not go unnoticed by the higher realms. The corruption and chaos they brought about grieved God deeply. The earth, once a place of harmony and divine order, had become a breeding ground for wickedness and violence.
Okay, so this matches with what you're told in the ancient books, that mankind had just become abhorrently corrupt. But you kind of have to separate a little bit of humankind, us mere midgets at 6'2", and then, right, what these Apocrypha books, earlier books, talk about. But we do know in the Great Flood, it was due to man had just become too corrupt.
In response to this unprecedented rebellion, God decided to intervene. According to the Book of Enoch, the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel were dispatched to address the situation. Their mission was to confront the Watchers, bind them, and cleanse the earth of the Nephilim's influence. Michael, the leader of the heavenly host, confronted Semyaza and his followers. The Watchers, now fully aware of the consequences of their actions, pleaded for mercy. However, their pleas fell on deaf ears. The archangels, executing divine judgment, bound the Watchers in chains and cast them into the depths of the earth, where they would remain until the final judgment. Gabriel was tasked with the destruction of the Nephilim. The mighty giants who had once roamed the earth with impunity were now hunted and eradicated. The devastation brought upon by their existence was immense, and their eradication marked a significant turning point in the divine plan for humanity. Despite the efforts to cleanse the earth, the corruption had spread too far and too deep. Humanity, influenced by the Nephilim and the Watchers, had descended into unparalleled wickedness. Genesis 6:5-7 captures God's sorrow and resolve. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, "I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." In the midst of this corruption, Noah, a man righteous in his generation, found favor in God's eyes. He was chosen to build an ark to preserve his family and pairs of every living creature from the impending deluge. The construction of the ark was an act of faith and obedience, marking a new covenant between God and humanity.
Okay. So you remember earlier me telling you that the sphinxes, which are massive, show this flood wave. There's massive evidence in every country of the Great Deluge. Every society has, every people, ancient and modern, have their Great Deluge story. I will tell you one thing. In one of the books I was writing long ago called The Great Deluge, I was bringing all of the 2,000+ stories together of the Great Deluge, distant mankind and on, to show how many different people, totally isolated, totally disconnected, never had interactions with each other, also had the Great Flood story in their backgrounds. I learned my lesson because as we were getting rid of that book and I'm editing and whatever, I used to keep everything on Google Drive. And Google locked the Drive account and wiped it all. We lost everything. Over the years, I've been recreating it, right? But this has always been part of the fight, because you can't say this little remote people in this foreign country and have a Great Deluge story, because it all codifies God and the Bible. And that was a fight for me that was 15 years ago, right? Yeah, 15 years ago or more. This fight is always go on. So when you're hearing this and you're understanding this new discovery and how we even got to this point, the big battle is, same with academia, not to do anything that basically says that God is there and that the Bible's true. And this becomes a conflict for society because, and this is also the conflict with if there were alien beings, although I'm not going there, but who do you pay attention to then? Your little local county guy trying to control you, or your higher power? So this has been the fight for a very long time. But at the base of it is to not codify and prove the virtue of God.
As the rains began to fall and the floodwaters rose, the antediluvian world was engulfed. The Nephilim, along with all other living beings outside the ark, perished in the waters. This cataclysmic event, as recounted in Genesis 7, was not just a physical cleansing, but a divine reset, aimed at purging the earth of its iniquities and offering a fresh start for humanity. The flood narrative underscores the severity of the corruption brought about by the intermingling of the sons of God and humans. It also highlights God's justice tempered with mercy, as Noah and his family emerged from the ark to repopulate the earth, tasked with the solemn duty of upholding righteousness in the new world. The Great Flood was meant to cleanse the earth of its corruption and offer a fresh start for humanity. However, as Noah's descendants began to repopulate the earth, traces of the pre-flood era's corruption re-emerged. Evidence of giants in the post-flood world.
Okay, quick analogy time. I cover this because I want you to understand how long the battle between light and darkness has been going on. All of your ancestors lived at a time that it was always light and darkness battling. It was always battling. Don't go forth and multiply and be bountiful. Let us control it and we'll tell you what to do. And that's the mankind element of it. We are at this biblical type of conflict right now. And that doesn't mean tomorrow's rapture. Don't even go there. I'm talking about how deep the stakes are, how monumental what you're seeing is. And why, as you look at the bad Muslims destroying ancient monuments that talk about this, they're doing it for a reason, to obliterate knowledge of the truth and your connection to God. This still goes on to this day.
World appears in several biblical texts, raising intriguing questions about the survival or re-emergence of the Nephilim. Numbers 13:33 recounts the report of the Israelite spies who explored Canaan. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This passage indicates that the Nephilim, or beings of similar stature and reputation, were present in the land of Canaan long after the flood. Further references to giants appear in Deuteronomy 3:11, describing King Og of Bashan, a remnant of the Rephaim. For only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. His bed was decorated with iron and was more than 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. The sheer size of Og's bed reflects his enormous stature, aligning with the descriptions of the Nephilim and suggesting that such beings persisted in the post-flood era. These references raise intriguing questions about the survival or re-emergence of the giants. If the Nephilim were indeed wiped out by the flood, how did similar beings appear in later times? One possibility is that the sons of God resumed their interactions with humans, leading to the birth of a new generation of giants. Another theory posits that some Nephilim survived the flood through extraordinary means, such as divine intervention or taking refuge in remote, unaffected areas. The presence of giants in the post-flood world signifies that the struggle between divine order and celestial rebellion continued. These beings, often associated with opposition to God's chosen people, played significant roles in the biblical narratives of conquest and deliverance, symbolizing the enduring battle between good and evil. The story of the Nephilim, though ancient,
Now, just kind of a warning. You hear the term God's chosen people, and you hear it connected to Jewish people. Put a pin in that just for a moment, because what I'm about to say is going to sound weird, but I want to explain my connection. I 100% believe I'm chosen. Has nothing to do with the fact that I'm Jewish or my ancestry. It has to do with, I believe God gave me gifts and allowed me to tap those gifts and use those gifts. That's my thing of chosen. Because every one of us are God's people and God's creation. It clearly states it, all made in the image of God. However, there is an anchor to history. And this is that Hebrew anchor. Now, if you remember at the top of the program, somebody was talking about Jews started all the wars, Jews this, Jews that. Don't you find it interesting that in this time where we're learning more than ever, where we know our government and countries are operated by bad guys, they were willing to kill us with a pandemic and all that other stuff, that spontaneously in the world, all of this anti-Semitic hate popped up. I talked about it many times. I kept on saying, something's coming, something's coming, something's coming, something's coming. And then we got October 7th. But instead of the world seeing it as a horrible attack on Israel, they sided, academia sided, oh, it's the Jews' fault. It was really their fault because they're killing us. Folks, I want to let you know that is not a coincidence. Because even you go back to the books, now I'll put on my Jewish hat, we've been fighting this forever. We've been fighting to keep it pure and truthful. We've been fighting to make sure everybody understands you have a direct connection to God. You are hearing ancient texts and stories telling you about this battle. Now, do you find it a coincidence when you recognize this battle has always been going on and Jews have always played a part, that at the same time in our own society, the wickedness is they want you to cut the pecker off a boy so you can say it's a girl, cut the boobs off the young girl so you can say it's a guy, tell you God doesn't exist, tell you can do anything you want, and what is wrong becomes right, and what is right becomes wrong. Do you not understand it's all connected? Every bit of it. They leave nothing to chance. And yet you sit here and buy in to hog swallow. Well, the Jews started every war. The Jews are this. They control America. Do you not understand that's the great deception? Do you not understand they're fighting for your brains, for your mind, and that you are a victim of this war? One's fighting for purity, that God made it right. One's fighting for, nope, God didn't make it right. We got to recreate it, cut it off, stitch it out, and make a forearm be a penis. You have to recognize what's going on, folks. And that's why this matters. And that's why this is 100% connected to elections. Because now we vote for this shit. And it makes us feel good because we vote. No, we didn't. It's a brainwash. This is why I kept on warning about all this anti-Semitic stuff coming up. It's a massive design. We are in a massive war.
has left a lasting legacy of intervention or taking refuge in remote, unaffected areas. The presence of giants in the post-flood world signifies that the struggle between divine order and celestial rebellion continued. These beings, often associated with opposition to God's chosen people, played significant roles in the biblical narratives of conquest and deliverance, symbolizing the enduring battle between good and evil. The story of the Nephilim, though ancient, has left a lasting legacy that continues to intrigue and inspire. These giants, born of divine rebellion and human interaction, symbolize the complex relationship between the heavenly and earthly realms. Their existence and actions serve as a powerful reminder of the consequences of crossing divine boundaries and the ongoing struggle between order and chaos. The Book of Enoch and other ancient writings provide further insight into the story of the Nephilim and their fathers, the Watchers. According to Enoch, the spirits of the Nephilim, after their physical destruction, became disembodied entities. These spirits, often associated with evil spirits and demonic forces, continued to influence the world in unseen ways. This notion ties into New Testament references to spiritual warfare, where believers are called to stand against the forces of darkness. The legacy of the Nephilim also extends to modern interpretations and theories. Some suggest that remnants of their genetic heritage might persist in certain individuals, explaining extraordinary physical or intellectual abilities. While this idea is speculative and lacks scientific evidence, it continues to fascinate those exploring the intersection of biblical history and genetics. Furthermore, reports of giant skeletons, mysterious archaeological findings, and folklore about enormous beings contribute to the enduring legend of the Nephilim. These stories, though often anecdotal and lacking concrete proof, keep the mystery alive and invite ongoing exploration and speculation. The Apostle Peter refers to the fallen angels in 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment, emphasizing the severity of their transgression and the certainty of divine justice. Jude 1:6 similarly highlights the fate of these beings, and the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. These passages reinforce the notion that the sons of God, though powerful, were ultimately subject to God's authority and judgment. The spiritual dimension of their story resonates in contemporary discussions of spiritual warfare. Believers are called to remain vigilant and discerning, aware of the unseen forces that seek to oppose and undermine their faith. The sons of God and their legacy serve as a sobering reminder of the consequences of rebellion and the enduring need for faithfulness and obedience to God.
This is what's going on. I've always told you, we live in a time where you are living monumental history. This fight is real. This war is real. That's why this war is dangerous. But it's a little bit different in the fact that they must own your mind. See, the only difference that happened in all of this, right, is they learned mankind were battery units. So let mankind go out and reproduce and thrive and produce food, produce money, produce stuff. We'll just control their minds. All of this now is the war for the mind. I cannot reconcile the wave of Christians who now believe Jews are bad or the evil source of everything. Because to do that is to turn away from the Word of God. And you can't be of two minds. There's only one side that wants you of two minds, and that's the darkness. And if they can cause that split in your mind, they own you. And if you've seen anything in All We Fight, anything that's going on in schools, it's people of split minds, or basically said, people out of their fucking minds. And there are variations of all of it. The world we live in is a magnificent place, right? It's truly magnificent. There's a side of me that wants to get out to exploration so I can be out in God's beauty, just out there, don't deal with people, don't talk with people, doing what I do in investigations. Right now, I've got to fight for my country. The reason I even covered this is because the moment one hit the wire, this stuff trying to discredit it hit the wire. And this is the war. This is why you can do an audit and find all this wonderful stuff, meaning light and truth of here's how they did it, but you've got an equal amount coming out. Not true, it's a grift, it's this, it's that. It's how it works. But see, you have free will. Free will of who you give your mind to. Some people say there's no God. I see God down to just a tiny seed. There is so much proof around us that God is real. It's amazing. But you have free will. Now, for me personally, this has so much ramifications. And yes, you could take it to the extraterrestrial world if you want. In the true term of extraterrestrial, just means it's past our barriers of our planet. And you can even say it's past our atmosphere as you go out the ball, or you might say it's after it rolls off the table, depending if you're a flat earther, doesn't matter. Free will, baby. But it's really about whatever gets you to the table, whatever gets you to understand how divine you are. See, when you study this stuff, you find out you're chosen. You find out you were designed to be here. You weren't a fucking accident. That's why you can't prove evolution. Can't prove it. That's why we're not growing tails and all this other shit. You can't prove evolution because you were not a fucking accident. You weren't a microbe that just happened by. It was God and a miracle. But see, the system cannot allow you to believe not only in God, but to believe you are a miracle made in God's image. Everything that mankind tries to do to set itself free, to live free in freedom, they suppress. Now, that's just the world we live in. But it has always been this way. Forever. Forever. But see, the key difference is you have a choice. You can blindly choose to ignore and to be in oblivion. It's just like in the movie The Matrix, and he says, okay, you'll plug me back in because the guy who betrayed, I want to be somebody famous, I want to eat a nice steak. That's it. You can choose that. You can choose that. You can choose it. Let me give you another topic because it came up in chat. Somebody says, my mom said God made her gay. Let me give you the irony in all of that. You actually don't know. Any of us only know what we've been told. We're all tempered by where we come from and what we're fed. But the lie of the world is the period. There's no such thing as election fraud, period. That's the great lie. Because what we're designed to do is question and seek and find out and make up our own fucking mind. That's the whole drill. I believe when you accept the period, you're captured. I don't want to be captured. Every day and everything I do in my life is to learn more and to do more, to learn more and to do more. I try not to accept a lot of things on fact unless I can empirically go back and look at it. You see it in my work in the audit. I can show you, here's where the ballots went bad. Here's the batch they're in. Here's the box they're in. Here it is. Here's how they did it. But yet you plow to somebody generic says, it's the machines. Well, show me. Well, I don't know how to show you because you can't really show you because it's a theory. But do you understand this fight's everywhere? It's everywhere in everything. You're told not to believe your eyes. Trust the science. You're told, look at this little boy. I'm going to cut his pecker off and watch him magically transform into a girl. I want you to think about how nasty the delusion is. We are living in a world that is psychotic. They are convinced that's science. But see, if you look deeper, just look deeper. They use the institution to convince you that's science, to convince you that man has the power to transform a man into a woman. That is mankind trying to adopt the attributes of God. Therefore, man can be God and have these kind of powers. All of this is connected. Every law, every book, every dollar, everything. But the one thing they don't want is for you to free your mind. So, if you realize how long this has been going on, then you also realize we're not alone. God has protected us this far. But at some point in time, mankind has to learn. You got to learn from history. Why do you think they hide the history? Why do you think they tear down statues? Why do you think they tear down, even in the Civil War, which was not about slavery, it was about commerce? If you tear it down, they get to totally rewrite it. I got attacked by academia because I said I would no more tear down a statue of Hitler than I would of a Civil War person. So you'd have a statue of Hitler. That doesn't mean I revere Hitler. He murdered people in my family. It means that statue has a story. And when a child or whoever sees that statue, you get to tell the story. You get to teach them. That's what all of this is about, is learning, evolving, and becoming better. So I did this today because we might find some interesting things coming out of this. It's going to be a battle. You're going to be told it's horseshit. Some people are going to say it means you're an alien. It doesn't matter. Because if you believe in God and God has a purpose for you and designed you the way it is, then it's exactly the way God designed you and why it is. So why would it change your faith? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. Because if it changes your faith wasn't solid to begin with. But you got to separate religion from faith because they are two different things. And so I hope you learned this lesson. There's so much fascinating stuff out there. There's so much that's been hidden from all of us. But maybe, by the grace of God, we'll learn more, do more. I think it only makes us better. I do. I think it only makes us better. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for allowing me to do this particular kind of program, but you can see how it's all connected. I would appreciate your support at Locals. It is the repository of all of the facts of the full forensic audit. It is the only reason we can keep it true in chain of custody. And in very short order, it's going to become more important than you could ever imagine. But it's been such a tiring fight. People have walked away from the fight. And frankly, we need your support to keep it going. Because even as it comes out and you start to see things, which may be in short order, it's still going to be a couple of year fight. Please support our work. God bless you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing this program.
This crazy world is telling you your sons can be daughters and your daughters can be your sons. When will the madness stop? Never. So you have to decide, will you comply or defy? They tell us all, you will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. Is this why America's largest food processing plants and food supply plants keep burning down? Do you really think this is a coincidence? Of course not. The system is telling us right to our faces what they have planned for us. You have a choice. Comply or simply defy their plan for us all. Defy the system's plan and execute your own plan. Abundant, safe, secure natural food supply. Introducing the Food Forest Bible. This bestseller by JovanHuttonPulitzer is the single most complete, executable, easy-to-follow plan for sustainable, self-managing food production for self-sufficiency and food security. For the first time ever, a coffee table, heirloom quality full color book which unlocks the ancient secrets of creating a food forest. Imagine planting in a way which requires no digging, no pesticides, and creates massive ancient food abundance. No fooling. Food forests are the ancient secret to planning and planting once. And have your own Garden of Eden, which will feed your families for decade after decade. Buck the system. Buck the New World Order and order your very own copy of JovanHuttonPulitzer's Food Forest Bible. Learn how to create a sustainable, self-managing, natural food production for self-sufficiency and food security for your family. Side yard, small yard, backyard, backlot, or even lots of acres, the Food Forest Bible works for everyone. Order on Amazon, hardcover, softcover, or ebook. Don't comply. Expertly defy the system.